OAuth2 interview questions for full-stack developers. Introduction. OAuth2 is an authorization framework that allows applications to access protected resources without directly sharing user passwords. Full-stack developers often learn OAuth2 to build secure applications with check login systems, third-party login, API security, JWT-based authorization, front-end authentication, backend resource servers, microservices security, Spring Boot security, React Angular authentication, mobile app authentication. A common learning topic is what OAuth2 interview questions should full-stack developers prepare? This guide explains Auth2 basics, Auth2 roles, access tokens, refresh tokens, authorization code flow, PKCE, client credentials flow, scopes, JWT, OIDC, Spring Boot integration, front-end integration, security best practices, common mistakes, interview questions and answers. OAuth 2.0 is defined by RFC 6749 as an authorization framework that lets a third-party application obtain limited access to an HTTP service, either on behalf of a resource owner or on its own behalf. Simple definition. OAuth 2 is a secure way for one application to get permission to access another system's resources. Simple example. User wants to log in using Google. App redirects user to Google. User approves. Google returns authorization code. App exchanges code for token. App uses token to access protected API. Simple idea. OAuth 2 equals delegated authorization, meaning user allows an app to access something without giving the app their password. Why full-stack developers learn OAuth 2? Full-stack developers use OAuth 2. Secure login flows, secure API authorization, social login, microservices authentication, second sign-on, mobile app security, front-end, back-end token handling, role-based access control, third-party API access. Example: React front-end, OAuth 2 login, OAuthOrization server, Spring Boot API, protected resources, OAuth 2 versus basic authentication, feature basic auth, OAuth 2 password shared with app, yes, no, token-based, no, yes, third-party access, poor, strong, scope control, no, yes, refresh tokens, no, yes, modern API security, limited, strong. Usage, simple internal systems, modern web, mobile APIs. Basic auth. Send username password with request, OAuth 2. Send access token with request, OAuth 2 versus JWT. Important interview point. OAuth 2 is a framework. JWT is a token format. OAuth 2 answers how authorization happens. JWT answers how token data may be represented. Example: OAuth 2 flow returns an access token. That access token may be a JWT or opaque token. Spring Security supports OAuth 2 resource servers using both JWT and opaque bearer tokens. OAuth 2 versus OpenID Connect. OAuth 2 is mainly for authorization. OpenID Connect is for authentication. OAuth 2 answers, can this app access this API? OIDC answers, who is the user? OIDC adds ID token? Check. User identity claims? Check. Standard login profile? Check. Authentication layer on top of OAuth 2. OpenID Connect Core defines the ID token as a security token containing claims about the authentication of an end user by an authorization server. Core OAuth 2 roles. OAuth 2 has 4 main roles. Role meaning resource owner, usually the user. Client application requesting access. Authorization server issues tokens. Resource server API that protects resources. Example: user equals resource owner. React app equals client. Google, Okta, Auth0, Keycloak equals authorization server. Spring Boot API equals resource server. OAuth 2 architecture. Typical architecture. frontend, client, authorization server, access token, backend API/resource server, protected data, full stack architecture. React, Angular app, -OAuth2 authorization code plus PKCE, -authorization server, -access token, -Spring Boot resource server, -database. Step 1. Understand resource owner. Resource owner is the person or system that owns the protected resource. Example: user owns profile data, user owns email, user owns photos, user owns orders. In most web apps, resource owner equals user. Step 2. Understand client. Client is the application requesting access. Examples: SEC, React app, Angular app, mobile app, backend service, admin dashboard, third-party application. Client types. Client type meaning public client cannot safely store secret. Confidential client can safely store secret. Public clients. SPA, mobile app, X, desktop app. Confidential clients. Backend server. Server rendered web app. Trusted internal service. Step 3. Understand authorization server. Authorization server is the system that authenticates the user and issues tokens. Examples: Keycloak, Okta, Auth2, Azure AD, Microsoft Entra ID, Google Identity, Custom Authorization Server. Responsibilities: authenticate user, ask for consent if needed, issue authorization code, issue access token, issue refresh token, validate clients, manage scopes. Step 4. Understand resource server. Resource server is the API that protects data and validates access tokens. Example: Spring Boot, REST API, Flow. Client sends request with token. Resource server validates token. If valid, returns protected data. If invalid, returns 401. Spring Security Resource Server can protect endpoints by validating OAuth2 bearer tokens, such as JWTs. Step 5. Understand access token. Access token is a token used to access protected APIs. Example request: GET API orders. Authorization bearer EYJHBGCOI. Access token usually contains or represents clock, subject, user, scopes, expiry, issuer, audience, permissions. Important: access tokens should be short-lived. Step 6. Understand refresh token. Refresh token is a token used to get a new access token without forcing the user to log in again. Flow. Access token expires. Client uses refresh token. Authorization server issues new access token. Important: refresh tokens are more sensitive than access tokens. Best practices: store securely. Rotate refresh tokens. Revoke on logout. Avoid exposing to JavaScript when possible. Use secure cookies for browser apps when appropriate. Step 7. Understand scope. Scope defines what the client is allowed to access. Examples: read profile, write orders, read email, admin users. Example token scope. Scope: read orders, write orders. API check. Does token have write orders? If yes, allow create order. If no, return 403. Step 8. Understand authorization code flow. Authorization code flow is commonly used for web applications. Flow: 1. User clicks login. 2. Client redirects user to authorization server. 3. User logs in. 4. Authorization server redirects back with authorization code. 5. Client exchanges code for tokens. 6. Client calls API using access token. High-level flow. Client means authorization server, means code, means token, means API. This is the recommended modern flow for many user-facing apps, especially with PKCE. Step 9. Understand PKCE. PKCE means Proof key for code exchange. PKCE helps protect authorization code flow, especially for public clients. Flow. Client creates code verifier. Client creates code challenge. Authorization request sends challenge. Token request sends verifier. Why important? If attacker steals authorization code, they still cannot exchange it without code verifier. OAuth 2.0 Security Best Current Practice recommends stronger protections for modern OAuth usage. RFC 9700 also warns against exposing access tokens in URLs and recommends using authorization code style flows instead of token and redirect patterns. Step 10. Understand client credentials flow. Client credentials flow is used for machine-to-machine communication. Example: payment service calls inventory service. Flow. Service sends client ID and client secret. Authorization server returns access token. Service calls another API. Used for backend service-to-service calls, scheduled jobs, internal APIs, automation systems. Not used for user login. Step 11. Understand implicit flow. Implicit flow was used by older browser applications. Modern guidance. Avoid implicit flow for new applications. Use authorization code flow with PKCE instead. Why? Tokens exposed in browser redirect. Higher leakage risk. Weaker security model. Modern browsers and OAuth guidance favor code plus PKCE. RFC 9700 describes OAuth2 security best current practices and includes protections against token leakage through redirect URLs. Step 12. Understand resource owner password flow. Resource owner password credentials flow means app directly collects username and password. Modern guidance. Avoid this flow for new applications. Why? Nope. App sees user password. Weak security model. Bad for third-party apps. Not suitable for modern SSO. Better. Use authorization code flow with PKCE. Step 13. Understand token types. Common token types. Token purpose. Access token. Access protected API. Refresh token. Get new access token. ID token. Prove user authentication in OIDC. Authorization code. Temporary code exchanged for tokens. Important. Access token is for APIs. ID token is for client authentication context. Do not use ID token as API authorization token. Step 14. JWT access token. JWT contains three parts. Header.payload.signature. Example: xxx.yyyy.zzz. JWT payload may include user101 is https://auth.example.com. Odd orders API. Scope: read orders. exp 173,000,000. Resource server validates. Check. Signature. Expiry. Issuer. Audience. Scopes. Roles. Step 15. Opaque token. Opaque token is a token that looks like a random string and does not expose claims to the client. Example: 7 Yaten FZFE JR1Z CMWPAA. Resource server validates it by calling introspection endpoint. JWT versus opaque. Token type validation. JWT. Locally validate signature claims. Opaque validate through authorization server. Step 16. OAuth2 login flow for full stack app. Architecture. Angular React frontend. Authorization server. Spring Boot API. Database. Flow. 1. User clicks login. 2. Frontend redirects to authorization server. 3. User authenticates. 4. Frontend receives authorization code. 5. Code exchanged for token. 6. Frontend calls backend API. 7. Backend validates token. 8. Backend returns protected data. Step 17. Spring Boot resource server. Maven dependency. Dependency. Group ID, org Spring Framework Boot, Group ID, Artifact ID, Spring Boot Starter OAuth2 Resource Server, Artifact ID, Configuration, Spring, Security, OAuth2, Resource Server, JWT, Issuer URI, https auth.example.com. Security config. Configuration at enable web security, public class security config. At bean, security filter chain, http security http, throws exception. Return http.authorize http requests, auth.request-matchers, API public / permit all, request matchers, API admin / has authority, scope admin, any request, authenticated. OAuth2 resource server, OAuth2, OAuth2.jwt, customizer with defaults. Build. HTTP, frontend token usage. Frontend calls API with access token. Fetch, https, api.example.com, API orders. Headers, https, bearer $access token. Angular interceptor idea. Const auth rec equals rec.clone. Set headers. Authorization. Bearer token. React Axios idea. Axios.get / API orders. Headers. Authorization bearer access token. Step 19. 401 versus 403. Very common interview question. Status meaning. 401. Unauthorized. No valid authentication. 403. Forbidden. Authenticated, but not allowed. Example, 401. No token expired token, invalid token. Example 403. Valid token, but missing admin scope. Step 20. Scopes versus roles. Scopes usually represent what the client can do. Examples. Read orders. Write orders. Roles usually represent who the user is in the application. Examples. Admin, user, manager. In real systems, scopes protect API capabilities. Roles protect business permissions. Step 21. OAuth2 in microservices. Architecture. Frontend, API gateway, microservices, resource servers. Common pattern. Gateway validates token. Services also validate token or trust gateway with strong internal security. Best practice. Do not rely only on front-end checks. Backend APIs must enforce authorization. Step 22. OAuth2 with API gateway. API gateway can handle token validation, routing, rate limiting, cores, logging, request headers, authentication forwarding. Example. API orders / means order service. API user / means user service. API admin / means admin service. Important. Services should still protect sensitive business operations. Step 23. OAuth2 security best practices. Best practices. Cache. Use authorization code flow with PKCE. Use HTTPS only. Validate redirect URIs strictly. Use short-lived access tokens. Protect refresh tokens. Validate issuer and audience. Validate token expiry. Avoid implicit flow. Avoid password flow. Use least privilege scopes. Do not store tokens in unsafe places. Rotate secrets. Revoke tokens on logout where possible. Never log tokens. Step 24. Common OAuth2 mistakes. Mistake 1. Confusing authentication and authorization. Wrong. OAuth2 is login. Better. OAuth2 is authorization. OIDC adds authentication. Mistake 2. Using ID token to call APIs. Wrong. Authorization. Bearer ID token. Better. Authorization. Bearer access token. Mistake 3. Storing tokens unsafely. Bad. Store long-lived tokens in local storage without considering XSS risk. Better. Use secure storage strategy based on app type and threat model. Mistake 4. Not validating audience. Bad. API accepts any token from issuer. API checks token audience is intended for this API. Mistake 5. Two broad scopes. Bad. Scope equals admin. Better. Read orders, write orders, read profile. Mistake 6. No PKCE for public clients. Modern browser mobile clients should use authorization code flow with PKCE. OAuth2. Interview questions and answers. 1. What is OAuth2? OAuth2 is an authorization framework that allows applications to obtain limited access to protected resources using tokens instead of sharing user passwords. 2. Is OAuth2 authentication or authorization? OAuth2 is mainly for authorization. OpenID Connect adds authentication on top of OAuth2. 3. What are the main OAuth2 roles? The main roles are: check, resource owner, check, client, authorization server, check, resource server. 4. What is an access token? An access token is a token used by a client to access protected APIs. 5. What is a refresh token? A refresh token is used to obtain a new access token when the current access token expires. 6. What is a scope? A scope defines what access a client has. Example: read orders, write orders. 7. What is authorization code flow? It is an OAuth2 flow where the client receives an authorization code and exchanges it for tokens. It is commonly used for web and mobile apps. 8. What is PKCE? PKCE is proof key for code exchange. It protects authorization code flow by requiring a code verifier during token exchange. 9. Why is PKCE important? PKCE helps prevent stolen authorization codes from being exchanged for tokens by attackers. 10. What is client credentials flow? Client credentials flow is used for machine-to-machine authentication, where no user is involved. Example: Service A calls Service B. 11. What is implicit flow? Implicit flow is an older OAuth2 flow where tokens are returned directly through the browser redirect. It is not recommended for new applications. 12. What is resource owner password flow? It is a flow where the app directly collects the user's username and password. It is not recommended for modern applications. 13. What is JWT? JWT is a JSON web token. It is a compact token format that can carry claims and be signed. 14. OAuth2 versus JWT. OAuth2 is an authorization framework. JWT is a token format. OAuth2 can use JWT access tokens, but OAuth2 is not the same as JWT.
15. OAuth2 versus OIDC.
OAuth2 is for authorization. OIDC is for authentication and identity, built on top of OAuth2. 16. What is an ID token? An ID token is an OpenID Connect token that contains information about user authentication. 17. Access token versus ID token. Token purpose: access token, access APIs. ID token: identify, authenticate user to client. Use access token for APIs. Use ID token for login, user identity at the client. 18. What is an authorization server? The authorization server authenticates users and issues tokens. Examples: Keycloak, Okta, Auth0, Azure AD, Google 19. What is a resource server? The resource server is the API that validates tokens and protects resources. Example: Spring Boot, REST API 20. What does bearer token mean? Bearer means whoever has the token can use it. That is why tokens must be protected. 21. What is token introspection? Token introspection is a process where the resource server asks the authorization server whether an opaque token is valid. 22. What is token revocation? Token revocation invalidates a token before its normal expiry. Used for click, logout, compromised token, click, user disabled, click, permission change. 23. What is redirect URI? Redirect URI is where the authorization server sends the user after authentication. It must be validated strictly. 24. What is state parameter? State helps protect against CSRF attacks in OAuth2 flows. The client sends state in authorization request and verifies it when the response returns. 25. What is nonce? Nonce is commonly used in OpenID Connect to connect authentication request and ID token response. It helps prevent replay attacks. 26. What is audience claim? Audience tells who the token is intended for. Example: Odd orders API. Resource server should validate that the token audience matches the API. 27. What is issuer claim? Issuer tells who issued the token. Example: ISS https://auth.example.com. Resource server validates issuer. 28. What is expiry claim? Expiry tells when token expires. Example: XP 1730000.
Expired tokens should be rejected.
29. What is JWKS? JWKS means JSON Web Key Set. It contains public keys used by resource servers to validate JWT signatures. 30. How does Spring Boot validate JWT? Spring Boot resource server can load issuer metadata, JWKS, validate token signature, expiry, issuer, and map scopes, authorities. Full stack OAuth2 flow example, React plus Spring Boot plus Keycloak. Architecture: React app Keycloak login, access token, Spring Boot resource server, PostgreSQL. Flow: 1. User opens React app. 2. User clicks login. 3. React redirects to Keycloak. 4. User logs in. 5. React gets authorization code. 6. Code exchanged for access token. 7. React calls Spring Boot API with token. Spring Boot validates token. 9. API returns protected data. Spring Boot example endpoint security. @REST controller, @request mapping, API orders. Public class order controller, get mapping, @pre-authorize, has authority, scope, read orders. Public list order response, get orders. @post mapping, @pre-authorize, has authority, scope, write orders. Public order response, create order. Return new order response. OAuth2 debugging checklist. When OAuth2 login or API access fails, check. Redirect URI. Client ID. Client secret. Grant type. Scopes. Token expiry. Issuer. Audience. JWKS URL. CORS settings. Frontend callback URL. Authorization header. Spring security logs. 401 versus 403. Common error. 401. Unauthorized. Possible causes: no token, invalid token, expired token, wrong issuer, wrong audience, invalid signature, missing bearer prefix. Example header should be: authorization, bearer, access token, common error, 403, forbidden. Possible causes: token valid, user authenticated, missing required role, scope, endpoint requires admin, authority mapping issue. Example: token has read orders. Endpoint requires write orders. Result equals 403. Common error, invalid redirect URI. Cause: redirect URI in request does not exactly match registered redirect URI. Fix: register correct callback URL in authorization server. Example: http://3000/callback, common error, CORS issue. Frontend calls backend and browser blocks request. Fix in Spring Boot. Configuration: public class course config. Bean: web MVC configurer, course configurer. Return new web MVC configurer. Override: public void add course mappings, course registry, registry.addMapping-API-S. Allowed origins: http://localhost 3000. Allowed methods: S. Important. Course is browser security. It is different from OAuth2 authorization. OAuth2 roadmap beginner level. Learn. Check. OAuth2 meaning. Check. Roles. Access token. Refresh token. Scopes. Authorization code flow. Build. Simple, front-end, login flow. Intermediate level. Learn. Key. PKCE. JWT validation. JOIDC. Spring Boot resource server. React Angular token usage. 401 versus 403. Build. Full stack app with OAuth2 login and protected API advanced level. Learn. Token introspection. JWKS. Microservices security. API gateway security. Client credentials flow. Refresh token rotation. Authorization policies. Build. OAuth2 secured microservices system. 30-day learning plan, week 1. OAuth2 basics. Learn. OAuth2 roles. Authorization server, resource server, client, access token, refresh token, scopes. Practice. Draw OAuth2 login flow. Week 2. Authorization code plus PKCE. Learn. Authorization code flow? Check. PKCE? Redirect URI. State. Token exchange. Front-end callback. Practice. Implement OAuth2 login in React or Angular. Week 3. Spring Boot resource server. Learn. Check JWT validation. Issuer URI. JWKS. Scopes. Method security. 401, 403 debugging. Practice. Secure Spring Boot API with OAuth2 resource server. Week 4. Production security. Learn. Check. Refresh token security. Audience validation. Token revocation. Client credentials. API gateway. Microservices authorization. Practice. Build production-style OAuth2 full-stack app. Best practices. Correct. Use authorization code flow with PKCE. Correct. Use HTTPS. Validate redirect URIs exactly. Use short-lived access tokens. Protect refresh tokens. Validate issuer. Validate audience. Validate expiry. Use least privilege scopes. Avoid implicit flow. Avoid password flow. Never log tokens. Do not expose client secrets. In frontend, enforce backend authorization. Use OIDC for login authentication. Use OAuth2 for API authorization. Final summary. OAuth2 is one of the most important security topics for full-stack developers. Important concepts include access token conquer, client resource server, client resource owner, access token, refresh token, scopes, authorization code flow, PKCE, client credentials flow, JWT, opaque tokens, OpenID Connect, Spring Boot resource server, front-end token usage, 401 versus 403, security best practices. Full-stack developers already understand. Check front-end login screens. Check backend APIs. Check authentication. Check authorization. Check HTTP headers, REST APIs. This makes OAuth2 easier to learn step by step. Key idea. OAuth2 allows applications to access protected APIs using tokens and delegated permissions instead of directly handling user passwords.